Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. After the moon sighting seminar, someone gave feedback to put the practical tips of moon sighting in a single video for people to watch and review. MashaAllah, great idea. So I was asked to add these practical tips to the YouTube playlist. Here are tips on practical moon sighting, technology, and photography. The first thing you need to understand is the sun and the moon both have rise and set. Both the sun and the moon are only visible to us during the time between its rise and its set. For example, if someone says that they have sighted the sun before sunrise or after its set at a location, it is not possible. Similarly, if someone says that they have sighted the moon before its rise or after its set, then it is not possible. Whenever you're trying to sight the moon, you need to be aware of the moon rise and the moon set times for your location. It is easy to do so on Google. Let me show you. Today is the 29th of August 2020 and the time right now in London is 11:41. Here is Google. All I will do is type in London moonset and search. You can search for any city in the world, for example, Mombasa, Madrid, New York. So you will say Mombasa moonset, Madrid moonset, New York moonset, and just search. So here we go. We will search. Usually the best site and the easiest for you to get these times from is timeanddate.com. So when I click on it, it opens it up on London for the entire month. Remember, today is the 29th of August 2020. So I will move the page down to find 29th of August. Here it is, 29th of August. The moon rise. The moon is not visible. It's set at 01:26. Right now is 11:41 during the day, so I will not be able to sight the moon because my time is not between moonrise and moonset. Let's get back to our presentation. Before moving to the next slide, remember that you can do this for any city in the world using Google. New moon, or the crescent, is always sighted after sunset. The most important figure is lag time. Lag time means the time between sunset and moonset. So you take the moonset, in my case 2019, and you subtract the sunset, in my case 1931. And if the number is positive, for example in my case 48 minutes, it means that the moon is setting 48 minutes after sunset. If the number is negative, it means that the moon set before sunset, so there's nothing for you to see. The bigger the positive number, the better, and it means the moon will be visible in the sky for a significant time after sunset. In my case, in this example, the moon is visible in the sky 48 minutes after sunset. So how do you actually sight the moon? You go to a location after Asr Salah, and then you watch the sun go down all the way until it sets. If you cannot watch the sun all the way until it sets, you will not be able to sight the moon. Now I will show you two pictures of watching the sunset. This is the first picture. It is a bad location for trying to sight the new crescent or the moon because these trees are in the way. You don't want to use this location. In this second picture, there are no trees and no buildings. So you have a clear view of the sky, and this is a good location which you can use. So remember, the first step is for you to watch the sun set all the way until it disappears. So once you've picked a location where you can watch the sun set all the way down, wait for the sun to set, wait another 15 or 20 minutes after sunset. You have to wait because the sun is bright and the new crescent is usually very thin and not very bright. The new moon is usually on the left of the setting sun. It can also be on the right, depending on your location on Earth. But if you're in Europe or United States, left is a good place to start. You want to go to your location on the 29th and try to sight the moon. If you do not sight it because the moon on the 29th is thin, then practice the next day on the 30th. Practicing at the same location 3 to 4 times is enough for you to become good. If you want to use an optical aid, then binoculars are always better than telescopes because telescopes are heavy and difficult to use. A 10 by 50 binocular is more than enough for you. Don't buy cheap binoculars. Go on eBay and get a used Celestron Skymaster right here. And they are fantastic for you. Don't spend too much money in expensive gadgets. Learn to spot the moon first on the 29th and 30th with your eyes, and trust me, you only need to do this 3 or 4 times and that's it. So once you've seen and noted the setting sun, use your right hand, put your little finger where the sun was set, and the crescent will be in between your thumb and your index finger or the Shahada finger. This is a rough guide. Generally speaking, the new crescent is to the left or right of where the sun was set, depending on your location on Earth. If you want to use your mobile phone, there are plenty of apps available. For example, Google Sky Map on Google or Skyview Lite on iPhone. Here I'm showing you pictures of Google Sky Map. These apps work in a similar way. Set the location on your phone. Search for moon. Personally, I find it easier when I then rotate my phone, tilt it, so it is in a different position. This arrow shows you where the moon is, so I keep turning my direction until my arrow becomes big like this. And the moon is in the direction where my phone is pointing. In practice, it is usually just a little above or below, so look carefully. You might want to practice this on a full moon, and this way you know how your app works, because you can look at the bright full moon with your eyes, and you can also see if the GPS on your phone is accurate enough. This app and technology overview is all on Wifaqul Ulama website, and the link is www.wifaqululama.co.uk/moonsighting. This is also the location where the moon sighting data for every month is available. The chart for every month covers Britain, South Africa, and Morocco. I'm going to make it easier for you to understand this data and omit some of the more technical details. This is a very rough and approximate generalization. Generally, look for the age of the moon to be 20 hours or older. Lag time must be positive, as we have covered before. Remember, bigger the number, the better. And also remember that you need to wait 15 to 20 minutes after sunset to sight the moon, because the sun is too bright and the new crescent is not bright enough, so the sunlight needs to disappear, making the thin crescent visible to your eyes. Altitude means height, so the higher in the sky, the better. Generally and roughly, a number of 11 degrees or higher is better for you to sight the moon. You also want the elongation to be 12 degrees or higher. You can get this data from Royal Greenwich Observatory. Here's the data for Gibraltar for Safar 1442. This sighting is going to be on September 18th, Friday. Pay attention to what the data gives you the sunset time for Gibraltar. The sunset actually locally is 2024 and not 1924. So the best time to sight the moon, this shows you the best time to sight the moon, will be 2052 and not 1952. It's because the time zones are given in GMT plus 1 hour. So keep an eye and compare this to your local sunset time. Before I explain these codes to you in detail, let me tell you that these codes were derived in 1990s and we are now in 2020. The human eye has remained the same for thousands of years, but we've had significant advancement in optical aid, telescopes, cameras, binoculars, and precisely and accurately tracking objects in the sky. All you need to know that if the code is A, B, or C, it can be possible to sight the moon. Of course, if it is A, then you can easily sight the moon with the naked eye, as it is in Gibraltar on the September 18th Friday. Remember that I said in the beginning that the moon cannot be sighted after moonset, and I made a categorical statement, and that is 100% true. These codes are estimates, so don't argue and debate about it. As a beginner, look at the code A, B, or even C and try to sight the moon at your location. How do you get this data from the observatory? Let me demonstrate it to you. So once again, we are in Google. You need to search for Web Almanac Beta. The beta at the end is important. By the way, the site is in the description of this video as well. So I then go ahead and search, and the site comes up, WebServe 2.0 Beta. Click on it, and I need to accept the conditions of use and submit. Then I go to Crescent Visibility right here, and I click on Run this option. Then I go to Named Location, and I type Gibraltar. Gibraltar right here, and I click Search. Select Gibraltar, then I click on Check to Use Dates. I want to find the data for September 18th, 2020. So I'm going to select September, but always pick a few days before. So I will pick September 15th. Calculate, and here is the data for September 18th. Look at the codes which are right here, and remember that A, B, or C, it is possible in theory for you to sight the moon. But remember, A is easy sighting. So we have A in Gibraltar. This moon can be easily sighted if the weather is clear in Gibraltar. Now let me show you a problem with this site. I'm going to try to find the data for Bogota, Colombia. I type in Bogota, B-O-G-O-T-A, click search, and it says no matches found. Please try again. They have listed a lot of cities which are easy to find, but they have not listed Bogota. So how do I find the data for Bogota, Colombia? I need to find the location from Google Maps because it is not in the list of cities. So I go to the Map tab, and I need to know where Bogota, Colombia is. So here it is. And what I do is I manually select my arrow to be on Bogota, and I now can find the data for specific dates. So now I can find the data for specific dates. So I need to know the data for September 17th, 2020 for Bogota. So I select Check to Use Dates. I select, remember, a few days before. So I will select 15th of September 2020. Remember, if the code is A, B, or C, it is possible in theory for you to sight the moon. Here, the code is D. So this moon will be difficult to sight in Bogota. Remember, I'm emphasizing again that these dates, sometimes these time zones are out. So take a look at the sunset time and compare what your sunset time is locally. You might need to adjust that by subtracting an hour or adding an hour to this time given by the observatory. Let's now get back to our presentation. Throughout this presentation, I've used the words moon and crescent alternatively. The correct term for the new moon is crescent, but since people usually say moon sighting in English, I've often used the term moon for easier understanding. If you want to photograph the moon and the crescent is available to you or visible to you using your naked eye, then you can photograph it using your normal mobile phone. You can also use your DSLR camera. They usually come with a normal 18 to 55 millimeter lens, which is called kit lens by photographers. It is also fine for taking photographs of moon, which you can see with your eyes. But how do you take the photographs of a hard to sight moon? You will need at least a 300 millimeter lens with a DSLR. Your ordinary kit lens will not do. The lens is the most important component of your camera. A lot of times people spend a lot of money on the camera, but not on the lens. It's the other way around. You want to have a good lens and a better to an average or even a better camera, but don't spend all your money on a camera, rather spend the money on the lens. You will need a tripod stand. Now some suggestions. Do not use autofocus. In fact, switch off all your auto stuff in your camera. We're going to use your camera manually. Number 2, put the moon in the middle of your focus. You'll find so many pictures where the moon is actually in the side or in the corner. Easy mistake. Put the moon in the middle of your camera. Use RAW mode for taking pictures of the moon on your camera. Never touch the button of your camera to take a picture because you will shake the camera when you're taking the picture. If your camera has a remote link, then click to take the picture remotely or use the timer. All DSLR cameras have a timer option, so set the timer to 2 seconds or 5 seconds. So take the picture automatically. Do not click the button and do not shake your camera. Now, since you've switched off all your auto stuff, what settings do you use? Read the manual on your camera and set the ISO to the lowest possible setting, usually 100. Set the shutter speed to 1/125. When you take the picture, and if your picture is too bright, then increase the shutter speed and set it higher to 1/160 or 1/200. When you take the picture, and if your picture is too dark, set the shutter speed lower to 1/100 or 1/80. So if it's bright, shutter speed's higher. If it's dark, set the shutter speed lower. Set the aperture or the f number of your camera to 11. Once you become experienced, you can experiment with it and use the f numbers between 11 and 14 for taking the pictures of the new crescent, but 11 is a good starting point. I hope that you found this presentation useful. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.